Okay, well, welcome everybody on a cold Tuesday night to get out and be able to see the governor here. My name is Brett Millis. I'm the chair of Lynn County Democrats. Very happy to see such a good turnout and welcome you all here. And I want to thank Parlor City Pub for letting us use the facility and for your help here tonight. Thank you very much. I don't know if any of you have met the governor. I met the governor this last summer when he was assisting with Tom Miller with his race for Attorney General. And that's because the governor here was Attorney General in the state of Montana from 2009 to 2013. And then from there he was elected governor and was re-elected in 2016. And the key thing there is that the governor won by 4 percentage points. But in the state of Montana, Trump won by 20. So that kind of shows you that Governor Bullock has some electability and has some good ideas about Medicare and the future for Iowa, or for Iowa and the country as well. So with that, I'm going to turn the floor over to Governor Bullock, and I'd like to welcome you here.
Great, thanks, Brett. So thanks for all coming out on a cold Tuesday. Although I've been in Iowa for a couple days. I'm also chair of the National Governors Association, so had official business in Des Moines for the last day and a half. And it was 24 below in Helena this morning, so this is balmy from where I come from. But you know, I think you all come out not just to have people come from around the country and try to make attenuated, connections to Iowa. So I won't tell you my great-great-grandfather settled in Henry County, or my mother was born in Lowell, or in Ottumwa, because that has nothing to do with it. I think why you all come out is fundamentally because the same reasons that we want to make sure come November 2020 that Donald Trump isn't president again. But 3 things on that. First of all, if we think just talking about how bad he is enough, we're wrong. We got to be giving voters a reason to be with us, and with us as Democrats. Another thing is that from my perspective, this isn't about just cobbling together 270 electoral votes. Because if we do, and we still can't get government to work any better, we're not that much better off. And the other thing is that we have to make sure at the end of the day that we find somebody that could not only win the presidency, but your lives are impacted, I know it, by what happens in the legislature, what happens to the governors. So we actually have to bring somebody that can help bring all of us up wherever we are in this country. And don't kid yourself, I don't think that we got problems. Donald Trump didn't cause them. He's the result, actually, though, of people feeling like government no longer works for them. This started before Donald Trump was even elected president. As Brett said, so I was the only Democrat in the country to get reelected statewide in a race in 2016 in a state that Trump won. He won by 20, I won by 4. So I think I know a little something about winning in tough areas. But more than that, I've actually seen government work. I know what a difference it can make. So I'd like to talk a little bit about Montana, but then also where I think we should be going as a state and as a country and as a party. So from my perspective, I govern by and large the same way that I run for office. My legislature, when I came in, was a little uglier than yours, almost 2/3 Republican. Now it's about the same, 60-40. And how I win and how I govern are the same. First, I show up. I don't have the luxury in Montana, a 147,000 square mile state, of just going to where the pockets of blue are. I actually have to go out and engage with people. I try to listen more than I talk. I try to get my ego out of the equation. I'll talk a little bit about that. And I begin with a base assumption that we share values. Most people's lives are too busy on a Tuesday to come out in Lynn County and listen to somebody from Montana talk. Most people's lives are too busy actually for politics. They're concerned, is my kid going to get sick? How are my schools? Am I going to keep my job? But the values, the things that we want, by and large, aren't that different. We want a safe community. We want a roof over our head. We want a decent job. We want good public schools, clean air, and clean water. And the belief you can do better for your kids and grandkids than you did for yourself. Those are the values that I've always tried to organize around. And I think those are the values that can break through and get people that ought to be with us back with us. So what do I mean by showing up and listening? Montana in 2000, 15, my number one priority was getting Medicaid expanded. And with a legislature like that, I could have spent my whole time sitting in the state capitol. But you know what? I learned that that's not how I'm going to move those legislators. I'll never forget, I went to a town called Choteau, Montana, population 1,700. Going to this community meeting, and there weren't a lot of Bullock supporters in that room, I could tell from the beginning. And even better, or worse, the Koch brothers were nice enough to mail flyers with me and Barack Obama to every single household in that community, talking about how we're about to screw up their healthcare system. So I walk in, and instead of telling them what they need, I let them talk to me. Hospital administrator said 43% of the people that walk through those hospital doors don't have health insurance. A county commissioner from the suburbs of Choteau, a town called Bynum, he was a rancher, he said, you know what, this hospital saved my life several times, including when I recently had a heart attack a year ago. And if we lose this hospital, we've lost that town. So by me actually going and listening, not telling them what they need, that's what gave their Republican legislature the courage to actually defy the Koch brothers, defy the party leadership, and vote at a time where every single vote mattered to get this through. As a result, we went from an uninsured rate from 20% down to less than 8% today. We haven't lost one rural hospital, and people are finally getting the health care that they need. Now, rural Montana is not that much different than rural Iowa. And the lesson from that for Democrats is whether you're in Montana or Iowa or Michigan or Wisconsin, we can't be writing off communities or parts of the country or parts of even states where people disagree with us. That's what this president's doing. And that's no way to ultimately govern. I say also you have to take your ego out of the equation. That might sound funny for elected officials. And it's also certainly something that doesn't always work in Washington, D.C. But let me give you an example from Montana. Pre-K. So we were one of 6 states that hadn't made any public investments in publicly funded preschool. And it was my second legislative session where I told my staff, I'm not going to walk out without these investments in my budget. And then my crew said, you know what, Bullock, then you will never get a budget at the end. So I sat down the legislators, the leadership, and I said, do you hate me or do you hate kids, right? Because if you hate me, I can work with that. If you hate kids, we got a problem. So I realized it was too much about me. So the next legislative session, I actually got governors of Mississippi and Oklahoma to write letters to my Republican legislators. I had the Republican governor of Nevada call some of them. I brought up the Secretary of Education from Alabama, actually, to talk to our legislators. Recently took a few legislators down to Alabama as I'm trying to expand the program. Don't forget, it was the Senate Minority Leaders like, yep, we got 8 Democrats, and that's 8 too many in our Senate. But fundamentally, by giving them saying it's not about me, and it's not about Democrats or Republicans, that gave those Republicans the social license to make that first-time investment in publicly funded preschool. And we build off of education. 6 of our 8 years, we froze college tuition because we know that increases in college tuition are essentially taxes on working families all across the state. Record investments in education. We figured out the way to take the ego out of it and make it not about the political food fights of the day, but how are we going to impact people's lives? And also back to shared values. It's not always a good thing to say right now, but we have to find common ground with individuals. And that's in one of the areas that I think that I've had a lot of success, which has made a whole lot of other success possible, is getting corporate money and dark money out of our elections. Something I've been fighting for dang near 10 years. I was AG, as Brett mentioned, when this little case called Citizens United came up. I actually wrote the brief that the majority of states signed on to, including a whole bunch of Republican states, saying that if you're going to mess with our federal elections, the vast majority of elections actually happen at the state and local level. So let us regulate what's going to happen. Didn't quite work out too well. Every other state said game over. There's nothing that we can do. I took a different tack. We had a 100-year history. One time Montana was completely dominated by copper kings. Essentially the corporate treasuries that bought every single both our legislative races and our local. But we had a 100-year history when we took it back, and there were no corporate influences in our elections. Elections were about people talking to people, not about outside money. So I actually built a case. I got testimony from Democrats and Republicans talking about what the threat even of outside spending or what the inducement of outside spending could do. And we built a record. We took it up. The Montana Supreme Court. We won about the corrupting influence of what this could do. It was the first case up after Citizens United, all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. Case for you lawyers, unfortunately, forever called ATP versus Bullock. On a 5-4 decision, 100 years of Montana's clean history and campaigns was thrown out. Again, you could have said, well, there's nothing that we can do. But I took a different tack. With that 2/3 Republican legislature, working with some individuals on the Republican side that had been targets of dark money as well. We passed a law that said 90 days out from the election, if you're going to spend in our elections, you have to disclose where that money comes from. I'll never forget, I was running for re-election. Day 91, the Koch brothers are sending mailings at me talking about how horrible I am. Day 90, we stopped. We stopped the Koch brothers. And if we can stop the Koch brothers in the state of Montana, we sure as heck ought to be able to stop them everywhere in the country. It's more than just about, though, I guess, finding common ground or finding common values. It's also about defending the values that we hold as Democrats, and I think that are held by mainstream places all across the country. 24th governor, I have more vetoes than any governor in the history of our state. Never compromised on a woman's right to make her own health care decisions. Never once compromised on access to the ballot box or access to the courthouse or recognizing that the right to organize and collectively bargain built a lot of this country. So we are not a right to work for less state. We've protected the rights of all Montanans, fighting against discrimination for LGBTQ Montanans. And we've also taken something that is one of the great equalizers that, while you don't have as much in Iowa, there was a rally, a bid in the state capitol today, is public lands. That I've been fighting for ever since I took office, to keep public lands in public hands, because that is one of the great equalizers that we have, no matter how wealthy we are. So we've been able to do these things all along. Now I know that there's 37 candidates, or whatever it might be. Almost. Have a great deal of respect for a lot of them. They've really been fighting a good fight, especially in DC. But I think at times in DC, fighting has become the substitute for actually doing and getting things done. And I'd say even from a state like Montana, I put my record up about actually getting things done, not just to resist, but to improve people's lives against anybody. One example would be, so the FCC repeals net neutrality. And everybody screamed about it and said it's so horrible. I'll never forget, I was sitting in my office and my assistant says, Governor, your 16-year-old daughter, 15-year-old daughter is calling through the switchboard. I'm like, why would I pick up the phone? Hey Caroline, what's up? She goes, Governor? When your 15-year-old daughter says, Governor, you know you're in trouble. She said, you know, I just got done calling the senators and our congressmen, asking them about net neutrality and what they're going to do about it. You know, my first response was, well, I hope you didn't use your last name. But then she said, what are you going to do about it? So we dug in, and we signed a little executive order that said, if you want a contract with the state of Montana to sell internet services, you have to preserve internet services for the entire state. Now, I recognize that Montana may not be the market maker for the nation, but then we made a template. We encouraged other states to sign on. That same week, 2 little tiny states called New Jersey and New York signed the exact same executive order. We've got Republican-led states, like the governor of Vermont, to sign the same. So we fought back every step of the way, and it made a difference. I never thought necessarily that I'd be getting into this or thinking about being this greater part of the national conversation. I haven't I'm not one that's announced I'm in the middle of my legislative session. But 2016 was a wake-up call for me in two respects. One of which, what Trump's doing not only to our country and our country's stand in the world, but I started traveling a little bit more after that. And invariably, when I kind of tell my story, I'd say, you know what, 25 to 30% of my voters voted for Donald Trump. Immediately, among Democrat groups, far too often the response was, what's wrong with those voters? Or a little skeptically, like, what's wrong with you, Bullock? Never, what's wrong with us as Democrats? Why aren't we reaching and getting people that if they're voting their pocketbook in their interests, that they would be with us? How is it that we're losing swaths of the country and people that were traditionally with us that aren't anymore? Now, I was raised by a single mom in a paycheck to paycheck. Knew that there was a governor's house in town because I delivered newspapers to it. So I've literally gone 4 blocks in life from where I was raised. But you know what? I had that shot to go from essentially delivering newspapers to that house to raising our 3 kids in it. And for far too many people, that shot no longer exists. And for some in our country, it never has. If I go back to the 70s when I was raised, 90% of 30-year-olds were doing better than their parents were at age 30. Today, it's only half. 44% of Americans, if there was an emergency that required $400, they wouldn't have it. So the economy is broken for far too many people. And when the economy is broken, and they look to the political system to say, are you going to work? Are you going to help improve my life? And it's corrupted by the outside dollars. That, I think, is what allowed a guy like Donald Trump to actually break the social bonds between us instead of bringing everybody up together. We've got to start addressing some of the outside corrupting dollars in this system if we're ever going to get government to function, if we're ever going to get that promise that we had expected. Think of some of the big issues, climate change. When George Herbert Walker Bush was president, he said, you know what, we are going to attack the greenhouse effect with the White House effect. Meaning we'll lead from the top on this. Now Republicans, because of the corrupting influence of what somebody might be spending against them, they can't even acknowledge that climate change is human caused. In 2006, 2% of the outside spending by non-party groups was by dark money groups, groups that don't disclose their donors. These midterms, half of all the spending was. We have to address that if we're ever going to tackle the bigger problems. And as we do then, I think that there are steps you can take. We've got to be investing first in the individuals. I talk about publicly funded preschool. You don't wait until somebody's about to get in the job market. We know for every dollar invested in that, there's a $7 return. We know that for a quality 4-year-old's daycare, it costs more than college tuition in most states. We need to be making those investments. We need to be making the investments to ensure that higher education is affordable. In my state, 46 states since the recession have decreased their investments in higher ed, in real terms by 17%. Montana's one of 4 states that's actually increased. We also have to, and I'm pleased with that, but also got to recognize not everybody's going to college. I'm equally pleased with the fact that apprenticeships, we used to just think of them as welding. 1,000 different apprenticeable fields. Work-based learning where you can get a decent paycheck while you're climbing that economic ladder. We've doubled it in the last 10 years in Montana. We've made our 2-year colleges and our tribal colleges not just about an associate's degree, but about that professionally recognized certificate that can help you get the job that you need and keep that job that you need. It's not all on government and the employees or the students either, though. Companies need to pay their share and actually do their part. My mom, once she finally got on with a phone company, she knew she'd have decent benefits. She knew she'd have a decent salary and she'd have a chance to climb up that ladder of opportunity. For far too many companies, that no longer exists. And what we're doing is we're taking more and more of our employees and we're incentivizing actually hiring independent contractors where they're not going to get a retirement. They're not necessarily going to get health care. They're not ever going to be able to see a climbing of opportunity. We have a tax code that's going to incentivize not investing in workers, but stock buybacks. Until we start to make sure that the companies have the obligation, and then back that tax code, looking at what fairness is. Think about what happened with these Trump tax cuts. We never talk about the fact that now you can invest and completely write off your investments in automation in the first year. But there's nothing to incentivize them to actually invest in workers. Or you know what? This tax cut, $1.9 trillion debt on our kids and our grandkids. A program where an Amazon, who makes all this money, pays zero in taxes. Think about what Lindsey Graham said when he was going through. He said, we've got to get this done to make sure that our donors stay happy. It was the outside dollars that even said, as blatant as that is, that this is what we're going to have to do to get this thing done. So I think that we do have to address that. And I know that in some respects you'd say, well, there's not much you can do until you get a constitutional amendment or a new Supreme Court. And I think that's part of the problem with the attitude of DC right now, is that we'll talk about things, but we won't do it. First day, I'd sign an executive order that, just like the one I did in Montana. And what that said is that, you know what, if you want to contract with the state of Montana, if you want to sell services or goods, I'm not telling you can't actually do any, spending in our elections, but you have to disclose every different way you're going to spend. If we could do that in Montana, and we're the only state that's done it, again, you could do that the first day when you're in Washington, D.C. And the second day, you could begin to build the same things that we did there, pass a Disclose Act, like we did at home. And the third day, you turn around and say, you know what, before we can address all the other issues, we've got to make sure that people believe this system works. And what we've seen more and more at the state level is ways to make it a lot harder for people to vote, harder to engage, as opposed to making it easier, as opposed to having same-day voter registration, as opposed to making accessibility. We can take those steps along the way, and then that's how, then we'll start to address the challenges of an economy that no longer works for people. We'll address the challenges of climate change. We'll address those facets. Now, a week ago, I guess, today, I was at the White House with all the other governors around the country. And as chair, typically what happens is that the president speaks and then questions, usually the chair can provide a few comments and then there's questions from other governors. This time President Trump came in, he spoke for about an hour, spoke about a whole lot of things like the basketball players in China and how he freed them, and then he left without one question. What I was going to ask you, and what I was going to say is, when I took office in 2012, my kids were 6, 8, and 10. It had been 40 years in Montana since a governor had kids that age run around the governor's residence. And in my first day of the state, I said that our kids learn from our words and our deeds. What we say and what we do matter as elected officials. And we have a responsibility to recognize that in how we behave and what we do. I was going to say, I believe that now more than ever, maybe even more so. So the question that I was going to pose was, what can we do as leaders to make sure that our kids and our grandkids look at this political system and they can believe in it and aspire to it and be proud of it? And I think fundamentally, at some point, the president has to answer that question. I think everybody running for this office is going to have to answer that question. And I think that, even more than that, all of us, what are we doing to actually build the system up to make it one where our kids and our grandkids will believe in it? Because we're at a challenging point in this 240-year experiment with representative democracy. We're in a challenging place where A lot of people don't think it works. And we have an obligation, in addition to winning the election, to ensure that it can work. I'm an optimist. Being the parent of 3 kids, you have to be optimistic. Coming from the West, I think it breeds optimism in you. And I fundamentally believe that we can make it one where our kids and our grandkids will aspire and believe in it. So I appreciate you all coming out. Appreciate your engagement along all of this path with everybody. And Brett, thanks for doing this. I'd probably be happy to answer almost any question. Thanks. Yes, sir.
Hey, yeah, welcome to Iowa. My daughter here says you sound like a cowboy. Excuse me. So being from a red state and a pro-gun state, and representing the Democratic Party going forward, if you were sort of leading our pack, what kind of issues will you talk about to try to introduce some common sense gun reform?
Yeah, and look, I come at this in many different ways. I mean, I'm a hunter. I own firearms. Maybe one of the most enjoyable days was when I was with my 11-year-old son when he got his first deer. I've also been personally impacted. My family has by gun violence. I was in my last class of law school at Columbia, New York. I get a call, find out that a 10-year-old had brought a gun and shot and killed my 11-year-old nephew on a playground in Montana. Now at the time, it was the youngest schoolyard shooting in the country. Today it would not even make national news. Under this president and the previous one, over a fourth of the times that I've been asked to lower the flags have been for mass shootings. Why is it when my 6th grader goes to middle school, I'm like, how's your first week? We learned where to hide in case something happens. I think we need to start looking at it as a public health issue. First of all, not taking away anybody's guns. Right? 40% of households in America have guns. We're not talking about taking away people's guns. Public health issue would start and say red flag laws, providing the ability to get something. We know that if in an intimate partner relationship, as an example, if a gun is present, much more likely to have something happen. So allow that. Universal background checks, I believe. And I think that, you know, when we talk about assault weapons, not semi-automatics, because there's shotguns for bird hunting and things like that. But when Dick's, when Walmart, when others say, you know, you don't need them for self-defense, you don't need them for hunting, it's time we include that in the conversation as well. Not taking away people's guns, but it also then goes back, to some ways, to this outside money and corruption. Like when I was growing up, the NRA was an organization that was about encouraging people to get into hunting, and it was also about gun safety. Now it's a political organization and nothing else. So we've got to take that on, and we've got to talk in a way that people will understand that respect the right of somebody to have a firearm. But we also want to respect the right to make sure that your daughter and everybody else stays safe.
Thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, me? Cool. I was tweeting, so by the way. I'm Jocelyn. I'm a member of the Planned Parenthood board here in Iowa, so I was happy to hear that you've done your part to protect the rights of women and everyone in Montana, especially reproductive rights. So you mentioned a couple of the things that someone could do in their first few days in office that would be very impactful. But what do you think someone could do in their first few days of the presidential office, specifically for women?
I think you could do actually another one of those. I'm trying to think of like we did an executive order. Think about back to, it was the Kennedy days when we signed a law that said women and men will ultimately get paid the same. And we're still at 75 cents on the dollar. I think you could do executive orders on gender pay equity as far as the opportunities. You adding transparency to that.
Subconscious on the part of white people, that fear of black people and brown people that we're going to take over. How are you going to convince? How will you set up the dynamics that we can all go forward together without cannibalizing each other, and particularly the fears of white people? But you don't have to fear, because we have to bring up everybody. Well, we got, cause again, I'm gonna say this country is in danger. In our major inner cities, our schools are failing. Even in Iowa, they got a thing called dispersion. They recognize the black kids in schools have dispersion. Okay, our country cannot move forward economically with a bunch of people who can't, who have not been taught how to learn. Who can't produce in the workforce or anywhere else.
No,
and now I hope my question is clear.
No.
And then thank you for coming back to Iowa, sir.
So it's good to be here. And I think also in part what you said is we got to figure out ways to bring up everybody. I mean, I will take a look at in Montana. 7% of my population is American Indian. 11% of my K-12. Some of the richest experiences I've had as governor has been with our tribal nations. But when you look at suicide rates, when you look at unemployment rates, when you look at the challenges of being 50 miles away from even seeing opportunity, that is but one example. American Indians, not unlike African Americans, have suffered literally centuries of injustice in this country, and I think that bill is coming due. But you got to figure out ways to bring everybody up. Like when I talked about apprenticeship programs, I did the first in the nation. 5 of my 7 tribal colleges, we put in an apprenticeship program where at the end of the day, I know that somebody that goes through that will see opportunities because there is a need on reservation for the jobs that we're training. So preserving, but figuring out a way that we're recognizing the unique historical challenges and the continuing challenges, but not dividing one another and saying it's up to us to bring everybody up. Yes, sir.
Yeah, given the considerable role that he played in dark money financing and possibly illicit role in the 2012 caucuses on supporting Rick Santorum, what, in your opinion, should we expect from Foster Friess this go around?
Given the role that did Foster Friess play into?
And then this election cycle.
Yeah, no, I think it's I think that is part of it when we talk about all the issues that we need to challenge and address. If we're not dealing with at least dark money, non-disclosed money, where companies that are bidding on state contracts and then also spending the money to try to impact it. If we're not addressing at least that, we have significant problems. Now, Citizens United equated corporations with people and money with speech. It was fundamentally one of the worst decisions that we've had and the most deleterious to representative democracy, certainly in decades. But no, I'd expect big outside money by guys like Foster Friess or others this time as well. And sunshine and transparency at least deals with part of it, right? I mean, during going into the midterms, Paul Ryan had a meeting, and I think he ended up getting like a $23 million or some number like that. And it's normalized. Nobody was even asking where that money's come from and how it's going to be spent. If at the end of the day, elected officials, if they're going to be like NASCAR, kind of bought and sold by, at least we need to know who's doing the buying and selling for sure. Yes, sir.
Joe Stutler with the State Vets Caucus. Your state, you've got what, Malmstrom Air Force Base. Your state has one of the highest populations of veterans, as I remember correctly, roughly 1 in 10.
Yeah.
Iowans don't really get that.
Wow.
This is not really a military state. This is not really a military place. However, we're in the longest period of war in the history of the United States. We have boots on the ground in multiple theaters, and one of the things that really annoys me about virtually all of our candidates, with the exception of a couple that actually wore the boots themselves, is that nobody's talking about these issues because we're so focused on the other very, very, very important things like the education and the economy and healthcare and all of that stuff. But I think one of the things Dems are forgetting is that everything can be boiled down to national defense, and that could be a message that could actually work with independents in ours. I mean, right now we've got way too many kids that, 70% that cannot meet the basic requirements for military service. That puts our nation at risk. And obviously the current administration has no respect for our military. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and Joe, I've never worn the boots, right? But you don't necessarily think about, and I didn't think about a lot when I was running for governor, that you're the commander-in-chief of the National Guard. And I'll never forget, probably 3 months in,
You have to make the call.
as governor, well, no, and I said, oh, by the way, honey, I'm going to be, to my wife, Lisa, I'm going to be going to Afghanistan and Kuwait. Because I had 750 individuals that I had sent, essentially, even though they were federalized. And on the one hand, first my wife's like, we didn't sign up for this. She said, if it's going to be my call, yeah, we did. And then I'll never forget, this is a longer story than you wanted, then I'll get directly to your answer. So it's that fall, I'm dropping off, my oldest is now junior in high school, but she was just starting middle school. And it was, as a parent, it was emotional. I'm dropping her off at school. And I'm thinking about how quickly she grew up. Then I go to another one of the schools in town to do my back to school tour. This little girl comes up to me and goes, you know my dad, right? In my line of business, so of course I know your dad. And he goes, you know what? You remember you met him in Afghanistan. And I'm thinking what I'm going through. And I said, you're right, I know your dad. And he's so proud of you right now. The message for me was two things. One of which, my role as Commander-in-Chief of the National Guard, but also the sacrifices that every family has along the way. And it's not just those serving overseas. That's why then we've also turned around and said, all right, we have a big initiative going on in prior learning assessments. I mean, so you're learning all these things in military service. Why can't we translate to college credits for what you've learned by serving our nation?
Thank you. Yes.
Or why don't we turn around and say, like when I passed Medicaid expansion, another 100,000 Montanans got health care. Guess what? 9,700 of them were veterans. Or if you look at the rate of suicide, I've been to 6 National Guard funerals since I became governor. Every one of them has been their own life. So we actually expanded the employee assistance program, the state government counseling program, to anybody that's ever worn a uniform. Say, we don't care, because we need to be taking care of the mental health needs. So fundamentally, when individuals make a commitment to serve our country, the question is, what are we at the state and federal government doing to meet their needs when they come back? And how are we aiming to ensure that there are opportunities back home? And I think that we all need to be doing a lot better job of that. Yes, sir.
Good to see you again.
Great seeing you.
My concern is I'm the spouse of a wife who is terminal and disabled and makes our pressure. However, makes her Medicaid and she got pre-existing health issues and it's like she can't afford her medication now. Now she is forced not to go to the doctor now because there's no health insurance at all.
I'm sorry.
And it's like she's basically with turn violence in Kansas. And I've noticed it's a pattern that allows the company governor to quietly doing behind closed doors. And we've got to be aware of that and stop that train before you lose that. And it's a great honor to know you, as I have, and we need more people like you to represent us as a whole, both veterans and people who are disabled, and have to help the health insurance like they do, because it's like choosing between, should I get my dedication or should I just drop that?
Right.
And, you
Yeah,
know,
and I'm sorry you're going through that. And, I mean, part of where I began too was that, yeah, this is about, in part, winning the big office. But if what we're talking about or what we as a party are talking about doesn't translate to make a difference in your legislature and your governor's races, you know, I think one of the things, like as a governor, I'm on the front lines. I have people stop me at Target and tell me either their healthcare challenges or what's happening. And we've got to make sure that whatever we're doing at the federal level, electorally also will translate home. And we've got to also figure out a way that, you know, there's a whole lot of, Iowa was considered very interesting, right? Because you're the first caucus. But there's also a whole lot of people that view where you live and where I live as flyover country. And even if we can cobble together 270 electoral votes, if the whole lot of the country doesn't feel like they're connecting with who we are as Democrats, well, your state house and state house all across the country are going to stay the exact same. So I think it's bigger than just the federal election for sure.
we can do one more.
One more?
Damn, that was close.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you're saying all the right words, and I love you for it. But as I see it, I'm an optimist too, but a very cynical one. And it's a contradiction, I'm sorry.
The cups has half a hole in it, or how's that?
Yeah, the real problem I see is holistics. And some of these, laws and, activism and so forth fail. And it almost sounds like feel-good laws. Because it doesn't, because if you fix one thing, it exasperates another things. Take, for instance, you mentioned what? African Americans being, or shootings. Shootings have happened, drive-bys have happened all throughout the 80s. Underreporting? No. How about no reporting? Shoot-bys. And you're talking about East LA, Chicago. I'm from Chicago. And they don't report nothing. You know what the cop says? They said, hey, bad guys are finding bad guys, or bad guys shooting bad guys. No. In those neighborhoods. How are you going to talk to those neighborhoods? And that's just one. And how about talking about holistics? Holistics dealing with the economic status of those people that live there. And I mentioned to the person who called me to come over to this thing, and thank you for that. I was telling him that, okay, well, let's talk about economics. And what if we can't help that neighborhood? What about a relocation program? Has anybody thought about relocation program? And what does that actually look like? And then if there was a relocation program, you have people, these communities, predominantly 93% Iowa white, or I don't know how it is in your state, but to integrate and bring talent here and see those people with raw talents to bring up and around. These are people who are financially starved, educated starved, and they mentally can't see the beauty of it, of what you're saying.
Yeah.
I would love to live in the community that you live in. I'm a single parent household kid. I'm a latchkey kid, man. And I know exactly how you
So is
look,
I.
you know what I'm saying? All throughout the Jordan years, people have been dying left and right, and I think about the solid talent from those. When GFK said, ask not what your country could do for you, but what you could do for your country, I'm sick of that statement. I work with the developmentally disabled, the elderly, the kids, and served in the United States, and I don't see very many people like that. How about holistically, why don't we have our young generations actually going to the armed forces or even volunteer to AmeriCorps to pay for graduation, so our parents can actually earn a way to have retirement? I don't hear any politicians who even think like that, or even find bipartisan sponsorship and all that stuff. Maybe you want to have to work with these big organizations and companies. Like for instance, there was a controversy with United Way and then Save the Children. United Way was taking 60% of their wealth and paying it to their workers, not going to the actual kids. Well, they outperform, Save the Children. So Save the Children is outdoor in United Way is like, it's like taking the thing. I mean, so where's the where's the corruption there? They're still helping. So I mean, I don't see the solutions, but I do see the solutions. So let's hear what you guys say about that. Holistics. Holistic. That's a key word.
There's a lot there. And I won't, so you talk about like an inner city area, right? And
When they're what?
intercity.
Yeah, that's the solution. Could be inner city, or the solution could be, a town. Like
I'll
us.
give, I guess, 2 examples, at least from my perspective. One of which, and that wasn't where it brought media, but former Secretary of Education Arnie Duncan has a program on the south side of Chicago,
Okay.
where I spent time last summer with a handful of young, mostly men. One of them, literally, I've been shot 18 times since I've come. Where the police would say, if you don't have a criminal record, you should get a concealed carry.
Yeah.
Because it's so dangerous. Where in that one neighborhood, on one weekend, there were 140 shootings. And doesn't have all of the answers, but what Arnie Duncan's doing with some other folks is saying, all right, I'm going to be there. First, I'm going to have mentors that walk that same path that these kids have. Most of their mentors have committed homicides. But then we're going to work with them one-on-one and help them feel safe. And ultimately then give them a trade. And they're working with them on taking bombed out houses and rebuilding. So then they see that there's economic opportunity here. And you're improving the same community that you lived in. And what's interesting in some respects is most of the young men that I talked to, they didn't want to get out. They wanted to improve their home because this was their home. And there's a piece holistically too, if you look at it. 2005 to 2015, we look at overall in the country. 150,000 new businesses were created. In 2/3 of the counties in America, they lost businesses.
Yeah. The recession.
So, well, and just a rural versus urban disconnect. And holistically, we have to say that nobody should be having to leave their school or their church or their community to make a decent living. And we have to work on making sure that not only, in a place like this, your cities are thriving, but the rural areas. Because if we lose those areas, we've lost a lot of other countries. I think that there are bonds, bridges that have to be built. Maybe that's not all the answers, but there's a lot in that question too.
And I hope that you'll be optimistic. I mean, I hope, look, because the alternative is, the dad had to take the young girl home. Like, what are we giving? What are we going to hand off? And it's not just, when government doesn't function, by and large, Republicans are succeeding, right? They don't want government to work, so many of them. So we have to demonstrate that it can work. And I think that there are ways to get it done. I so appreciate you all giving me a little time.